Alright, so following up from the video that I did yesterday with replacing the pinion gear and the crown gear, I showed up this movement here, and this is one of the things that I'm going to have a go at today. And why it matters, to actually clear the plastic T-boss in the back here, I've had to run the pinion reasonably far forward, so it means I'm running right on the end of the pinion. Not a big deal, but the less of that movement I've got in there, the better. So the big question is, where does the motor want to run in its natural magnetic? So it's running at the back when I spin it. It's running at the back, so it means I need to shim the front of the motor, because otherwise if I shim it at the back, I've got pressure because I'm pushing it forward all the time. So where do we start? This is not rocket science. Anyone can do this stuff. So things I do, just so you know, that when the car's running on the track, for those who don't know, this side's positive. So usually you have on the front of the motor a red marker here to show positive. So American driver's side. And then something else that I do, because this motor's filthy, eh? I put a plus on here, so when I pull the motor apart, I know where to put it back. Let me just grab some tools. Alright, so I've grabbed this little tool here. What does it do? If you look in the end of the motor, you've got two slots there. So what this does is you insert this below the motor brushes, and then as you rotate it, it lifts the motor brushes away from the com, which means you can then pull your motor apart without damaging your motor brushes. So these motors are just made out of alloy, like the can. These move away pretty easy. So then, yeah, make sure it's still away, and then done. So that's a bit filthy. I'll grab something to clean it with. No, I got myself a glass bowl. It's a lot bigger than what I'd like, but it's just it. So, shell light from Bunnings, etc. I think last time I bought it, it's about $8 a litre. If you want to buy a more expensive version, go and buy Zippo lighter fluid. It's the same thing. Where is the toothbrush? Hang on. Oh, I got a toothbrush. You could use some of those electrical sprays for this if you wanted, if you like spending a lot of money. So it's probably easier to visualise with this in there, eh? I've got a bit of motor brush left. It's got a bit of wear left in it. Not a great deal. I'm just going to reuse it again, I don't care. So, back to our Viper pinion removal tool. So, trying to get focus here. One of the things I'm looking for is to see whether there's wear marks on the com. And there is there actually. So I need to true that up a bit. I normally use a lathe for that job, but that's just because I have one. But battery drill will do the job. Most ordinary drill's easier actually. Now I just stick the outers of the outers in because it'll spin alright. So I've taken there's two little plastic washers there if they're too far away to see. So what have we got in the way of a fine? I use these things for a lot of things. Just down in the women's fingernail department. What gear is this thing in? There we go, that's why it's so slow. That'll do. I'm taking that out of there. An ordinary drill would be easier. Right, so after doing things like this, I've still got a bit more I could take out. After doing things like this, then I'll go through with the back of a stencil knife or Stanley knife or like Stanley knife blade or whatever. And what you want to do is you just want to clear those segments out, because anything you've just sanded, ground off, whatever, could be in those gaps, and if you make those bridge, you're going to burn your motor out. Something else also do from when I used to race larger scales, and it's just slightly chamfer, like just with the back of the blade, the edges. Do you know what? I am going to stick this in my lathe. I need to go further than that. I'll be back in a second. Alright, so I've just done the same thing, put it in my lathe just so I can see it a bit better, do it a bit faster, but I finished it off with a small bit of 600 wet and dry. Same thing as what I've did with the nail file. But yeah, now I'm back to cleaning segments out again. Oh, I scratched it. Idiot. Yeah, it just hadn't gone deep enough. Just knock the tops off those scratches. I'm not all that bothered by them. Alright, so then you've got to put those back on. Now, I didn't plan well for this. I'm going to get some spacers. So here I've got the same metal spacers that I put in the back axle to shim. Now these are just a generic washer. I think I bought them off eBay or something. Now, metal with comms, not a good thing, but I've got those plastic. Never put the metal up against there. You will blow your motor up, I guarantee it. So what I'm looking at now is to see if I can drop it inside the motor. Why won't that go on? The dog next door started barking. So that's too tight. Good stuff. Why is the dog next door barking? So what I might do is I might replace it with a plastic one. So I've just measured this up with vernier calipers. They're 0.3. Do you know where's a good place to pull plastic, thin plastic spacers from if you don't have any? Old motors. How thick's that? It's roughly about the same. It's roughly about the same thickness. Am I going to have to sand it? Surely that can't be the same thickness. Make sure when you do your test fitting, you assemble the same side of the motor, like the red side, the plus you've scratched on the side. Come on. Too tight, eh? Too big. Doesn't take much. So I need to make that smaller. Back to the trusty nail file. The likes of Viper and all there. So I've got that pressed together. I've got the two bases here, and that now spins freely, so that's happy days. So look, this is it. This is all there is to pulling one of these motors apart and putting them back together. You just bend these tabs back in whilst putting positive pressure on holding it together. There's a little bit of, it's a little bit tighter than it might. So obviously now I need to realign that. Now, here's what I do. I bend these little tabs around on the motor so they finish in there so they don't end up all messed up, and then make sure they're just proud of the end of the motor. And then when I go to install them, red being American driver's side, just knocked it. There you go. So again, this is where I go through and I check that my gears don't touch the T-boss, and it doesn't. And look, now because it's spaced out further, I've got my crown gear further on the pinion, so it's not right on the end anymore. So if I turn my dyno back on again, dyno's a really good tool for showing you guys what differences things actually make, because I can sit here and tell you whatever I want, but how do I actually evidence to you that actually what I'm doing makes a difference? So you don't have to buy a dyno. That's not what I'm saying by doing this. Why does that one feel tighter? Don't know, but I might. People ask me all the time where to lube these things. You know what's easier? Taking this off. Because then you'll be able to see it. To the rear oil light. Front. Alright. Now when I sit there and do stuff like this with motors, get yourself a variable power supply. It's so much better. Alright, so when I first put or assemble motors together, I run them in first. I'm going to put some. So I just dropped voodoo drops on the back of the motor brush. So normally what I'll do when I run a motor in is I run it at low voltage, run it for a little while until the motor peaks, and then keep raising it. Interesting, it's slowing back down again. Just what everyone wants to see is what it's actually sitting on now. There you go. So just a point of note, out of the packet, Bulldogs get anywhere between, when you first put them on here, between about 1.8 and 2.2. So like with basic things like shimming gears and shimming motors and stuff like that out, which this one didn't have done to it, you greatly increase performance of what they were out of the packet. But if I run this back down and just let it run in like I was going to, I'm not looking for top speed, I'm looking for mid track speed, which is where it's driven most of the time. There you go, I put some background cars in for people to have a look at, because I know the collectors love stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm going to finish putting my car together. Racing's tomorrow night. Watch the race, see how I go, see if I can keep in front of Pete Smart. Thanks for watching.